AM 970 WSTX presents Straight Talk with Redfield.
Here we've got Senator Novelle Francis in the house, and he's going to be sharing some of what's going on from his legislative and community citizen perspective with us, and I'm looking forward to hearing the things that he has to talk about. You know, it's always good when our leaders come back to us and talk and share. Don't wait until there's a crisis. Just come in every now and then and let the people know what's going on. In fact, more often than not, when we having problems is because folks haven't been as outreaching and outgoing in terms of updating the public. But no problem with that here today.
Dougie, it's funny that you're saying that because in the last couple of weeks we've had a number of senators on. We have one of our good senators with us today, one of the best dressed men on St. Croix. Everybody can see that, I guess, on the radio. But several of the senators, and perhaps you would agree, are very discouraged by some of our media, print, radio shows, etc., that are not, they have more interest in inflaming than informing. Senator, what do you think?
Absolutely. Yeah. First of all, I'd like to say good afternoon to former Senator Canton and yourself,
good afternoon,
Bob, and to the people of the Virgins and St. Croix. It's certainly just a beautiful day driving from my office in Frederickstead, coming through that bypass and getting up here to Christiansted. But I do agree with you that the media, whether print or audio media, has a responsibility to promote the positive that's going on in our community, and we understand that I don't sell paper, but at the same time then there needs to be a balancing act, where when you're prepared to release the negative information, you should be equally prepared to release the positive information that's going on in our community. And especially in light of the situation that we're seeing here right now, where we need all positive. St. Croix is about to take off, and we need to ensure that we create an environment where there's positivity, so that we don't have that pessimism that we're seeing here, because what that does is lead to other things, lead to crime, lead to the negativity that we're seeing in our community. So I always want to be on the positive side of whatever the issue may be, and of course, consider the negative, but at the same time, don't accentuate the negative. You want to build on the positives.
So put it in perspective is, I think, what is really, wouldn't you say, putting things in perspective makes a big difference.
Absolutely.
Oh, yeah.
Absolutely.
Because St. Croix, if we're ready to sail, we must raise the anchor.
Yeah.
You don't sail when the anchor's down.
Exactly.
Well, I'm not sure if you know, but I have a show of my own. I'm just fortunate to be able to sit in here today for Holland and help him out in the context of...
We're sitting in.
We're sitting, yeah.
It's a plural.
Yeah, we're sitting in. I was just talking about my little situation here. No problem. Yeah. But in the context of what you're saying, there's so much good that's going on here in these Virgin Islands. And we have this tendency to hone in, find that one negative thing and just stay and
then beat it to death. Beat it to death. We use every talk show, we use every opportunity to beat that negative to death. So and we have to change that. We truly have to change that, because we have to start to look at this glass as being, half full instead of being half empty, and truly build this community, because we need it. We need individuals. And you know what you talked about earlier about being global, and our information, everything else is accessed globally, and our information spreads like wildfire real quickly.
Yeah. Okay.
But it's interesting is to hear now, since the vote a couple of weeks ago on the, I guess we're calling it arc light. I mean, it's hard. It took a long time to go from Hess to Hovenza. And, in the conversation, we got to years and years and years saying Hess, then Hovenza, years and years and years now saying Hovenza. So we have to think of something else to call it. The refinery. Yes.
And we got to look at it as the proper name, which is really Lime Tree Bay Terminal.
Sure.
More so than ArcLight, because ArcLight is simply the parent company.
And that'll change.
Yes.
But the thing is that there are, and we've waited a long time, we must all admit, here on St. Croix, for positive news. But we have now positive news.
Yes.
And I would like to ask you, Senator, we've had, in the last few weeks since the vote, various senators on, and there's a very positive note. The Senate President is very positive, other the senators are very positive. Would you tell us what you see in not just the oil storage, but what do you see happening out there?
Truly, one of the first things that I see is that we're open for business. I think the sentiment that we want to spread throughout this community is that we're open for business so that we could start to spur the economic boost that we need on St. Croix and in the Virgin Islands. So we want to show that whatever your development is, let's have a discussion about it. Our EDA is prepared for it. Our DLCA is prepared for it. Our DPNR and all the other government agencies is really open for business in terms of developing this economy that we're seeing here. So for me, the ArcLight shows that approval of the ArcLight show that we're open for business. The deal was not a perfect deal. We have heard that from time to time again, but it's something that we could work with. Is give us an opportunity to have the oil storage and collect some money off of that, as well as again show that there may be some light refining and light manufacturing that will be coming in the immediate future. There's a couple of initiatives that myself and other colleagues are working on as well that will bear fruit in the very near future. There's some work that's being done throughout St. Croix in terms of some of the development that's already in progress, and we need to ensure that those continue. In regards to the ArcLight deal, for me, the biggest concern is that we hold our government agencies responsible for the enforcement of the agreement. We don't want those to fall short. We want to make sure that DPNR is doing what they're required to do. The Department of Labor is doing what they're required to do, so that we could be able to hold ArcLight, Lime Tree Bay, and whatever development is being done here, responsible for doing their part in this community.
But without beating them up.
Obviously, hold them responsible for enforcement, the terms of it. They've all signed on the dotted line that this is what we're required to do, this is what we intend to do, and we don't have to beat them up on it, but to hold them accountable for that. And if they don't do it, then there is punitive action that needs to be taken. But the punitive action should be to the letter of the agreement in terms of if you don't do this, this will be the consequences. We don't need to go overboard and show that the negative side of things, but we have to hold individuals accountable. So enforcement can be extremely necessary.
Well, one of the things I want to throw in there is that these businesses here, whether it's ArcLight or other corporate citizens here, we're looking for their commitment to the community as good corporate citizens. So I could call some names, but not to protect the guilty. But it's great when you see things, whether it's the Boys and Girls Club or we just had American Cancer Society in here, and these folks start calling names of companies that we know here as supporting them, and I see that is part of the light at the front of the tunnel, because it's not that far away now. So I welcome it in the context that not only do we have the economic development that will come out of it, but we also have the real opportunity for them as corporate citizens to be supportive in our community of a lot of our nonprofits and community organizations.
Talking about that, just yesterday I participated in a check donation. I went to the Youth Boxing Club out of Frederiksted. And again, where we had a corporate donor, EDC company, that donated $2,800 that went towards that nonprofit organization. So there's ongoing donation that's being made. Our nonprofit organization knock on our door every single day, looking for funding and assistance in how at best they will be able to promote some of the youth activities that's going on in this community.
It's a challenge.
There's maybe you would speak back to the ArcLight or back to the refinery site, which is bigger than just the refinery site, as you know, because right next door is Renaissance, and right on the other side is government land, which is public, which is Port Authority. Now, the opportunities that we have discussed and others have discussed, and I would like to get your take on it, the possibility, we don't control it, but the possibility of a transshipment port here. Would you speak to that a moment?
Absolutely, and I'm glad that you mentioned that, because just last week I visited the Renaissance area and did a drive-through of that entire area, and looking at the importance of creating a transshipment and a free trade zone area. I've been working with the Port Authority and other areas in terms of their move to relocate containers and over to the south shore of the island, freeing up Gallows Bay for development, as well as creating that transshipment point over in the area of the south shore. It is something that's a very much being worked on. is something that we intend to promote a lot during this particular year. The governor has also bought into the project that's being done. So it's an ongoing project and endeavor, and that I intend to do a proper rollout in the very near future on. But it's important and it's critical. I think that we're ripe for that type of discussion where we want to create some type of a transshipment container port over in the on the South Shore property there.
Well, and of course the beauty is we have a seaport and an airport right next to each other,
We
which is
have
very rare.
we have a deep water port, not just a seaport, but a deep water port. They have a lot of activities. We don't hear about it, but there's a lot of activity that goes on there. We have the Naval Marine Academy right now that have a ship docked over at the Renaissance property where they're doing some observation and doing some annual training within that facility. So there's a lot that goes on there that we're not aware of, but at the same time, there's an opportunity for us to really develop that entire area and be a little bit competitive in terms of the Panama Canal being open and being able to look at some of the we perhaps might not be able to lower some of the larger tankers in there, but there's some that certainly could use here as one of those partial transshipment port where they're able to bring and store some of their products here before moving on.
Now we hear that the Chinese oil company, Sinopec, which is a very big operation, that they own a great deal of the oil in Venezuela that's in the ground, that very, very heavy crude, which the cracker and the coker were built to handle, and there are very few places that can handle it. What do you know about that?
Well, I know that there have been several refinery and investors that have looked at the Hovensa site. As recent as about 2 weeks ago, we had individuals here from BP and some of the others that's truly looking at that. For me, I would not like to see a full-blown refinery restarted there. I want to see more light refining going on. I don't want the particularly heavy crude that comes with all the environmental concerns that troubles us. But there's an opportunity for us to be able to look at the sweet crude and some of the other light manufacturing that could be done. The storage is critical. The development of the storage and expanding the storage is something that truly could be beneficial to us. And we should not see this ArcLight agreement as being problematic or troublesome to us. But there is an opportunity there truly for further development.
So they are, we interviewed them here, and they're relatively young guys like yourself, and they have lots of energy, as you know. And their interest in St. Croix, and I guess their partner's interest in St. Croix, seems very positive. I mean, I think this is like the tip of the spear, the immediate storage facility. Do you see it that way, and that there are more things available? Absolutely.
These individuals, again, are very much involved in different investments. And while they spearhead some of these projects as being the funding source, I think that they do have the capital and they do have the management team to go out and seek other manufacturers and light refining that will be attractive to St. Croix and the Virgin Islands. I know that there have been some lively discussion by some of those developers, and I'm hoping that in the very near future they'll bear fruit. St. Croix and the whole Hovensa property is truly ideal location. It's very much in high demand, and I can't see nothing but upwards momentum in this acquisition.
Dougie, what a treat to have positive news like this, isn't it?
Well, the one thing that I followed throughout all of the debate back and forth, there seems to be a focus that suggests that somehow or the other we were only getting this little thing in this deal. And people have their concerns about the deal. That's all well I'm going to find. But this deal really opens up possibilities, all kinds of possibilities for other businesses. So you don't get 2,500 jobs off the bat just because of this one deal, but you have potentially 5,000 jobs when you look at these opportunities. And that's where you have to not be penny wise and pound foolish, but open your eyes and see really what this deal has brought to in terms of possibilities.
And if there's anything that we should have learned from the closure of Hovensa, is that we need to diversify our economy. We can't continue to put all our eggs in one basket, the Hovensa basket, and expect that we will have the end all. I think truly there's opportunities for us to look at other areas of development, and again, small and light refining that certainly bear us the same fruits. As well as the EDC companies. We need to continue to pursue those EDC companies that interested in coming to St. Croix.
Yeah.
Well, it's in the editorial I had in the paper that I wrote last week was about the baby bond. This is the baby bond, don't you think?
Yes.
What it's going to grow to, we don't know when
Yes,
the baby's born.
Yes.
Yeah, okay. Well, the bottom line is we've got potential for much more growth than this deal on its face, and that's where the positive lies, and that's what we're going to follow. Okay, we're going to take a pause for the cause, and we'll be back in a few minutes.
Listen to Straight Talk with Redfield online at WSTXAM.com. Get ready to call in at 773-0490. Straight Talk with Redfield will be right back on AM 970 WSTX. Mark the X. This is AM 970 WSTX.
All right, we're back on Straight Talk, WSTX, AM 970, 773-0390, 773-0490. All right. If you've got something you'd like to ask good Senator Novelle Francis in terms of the things that we're talking about, something that will help us get even further down the positive road, just give us a call. Of course, you can listen in on the internet. And if you have a smartphone and you got the TuneIn app, or you don't have it, just download it and you can listen to us live streaming. But we were just getting ready to get into a little conversation. The off mic conversations are some of the sweetest conversations. But anyhow, coding, computer related training, and I say this all in the context that one of the things that's happening to us in the United States and the Virgin Islands is that we have this way of sending folks to school. They go to school, they study something, they come back, and then they find out then when they come back that, well, ain't nothing here for what I went for.
Yes.
And so we're learning even more and more now that we've got to be more targeted in terms of guiding these young people and letting them know where the jobs are.
Yes.
Okay, and now with everything being accessible on an app, coding and computers and internet orientation, we've got this big pipe coming in here for the internet. But somehow or the other, we have to transform our schools to create young people who, I shouldn't say create, but to guide young people toward the type of jobs. If they choose to do something else, that's their business. But
something that has been a little bit disappointing for me is that we don't have the level of marketing that I would like to see personally in terms of our broadband access, and exactly what that could do for us. And it's critical that we start to really focus in on what this broadband technology that we have here on St. Croix and what it's capable of doing for us. We need to start to prepare our students, and when we talk about ArcLight or you talk about any jobs, we need to be able to determine what is the skill set, what is a job that will be coming in our immediate future, and how are we preparing our students to be able to get those jobs. So when we have that conversation about UVI and broadband and job skills, we can't leave out the issue that we have to be able to determine what those jobs will be and how do we start to prepare our students to be able to acquire and be applicable to receive those jobs, because we don't want the jobs to come here and then we have to look to other areas to be able to bring in that skill set.
Well, remember, there's what we also need to talk about is tradesmen. To have a trade is a fabulous thing for many people, and that opportunity of everything from, of course, in the case of pipe fitters and scaffold builders and carpenters and plumbers and all those trades where there's always a market. In fact, there's probably a greater deficit right now here and in America for tradespeople than there are for people who know about the computer. So
Bob,
I think
you're saying the same thing I'm saying.
Yes.
Where the jobs are.
Precisely. So
and the trades is just one label for those groups. But I'm just saying that coming at us at like a freight train is an idea of coding and apps, and that there's a whole, and between those two, here in the Virgin Islands in particular, between those two, I could tell you that historically, the trades have been looked at as second class to going through the academic environment. And I'm saying that that's a challenge that we have to undo that thinking.
Well, I agree with you so fully, because now a lot of it gets undone at the high school level. And for guys, if they say, I'm going to be a carpenter, and then no girl will go out with him, he's not going to be a carpenter. I'm joking a little bit. But, there's a little bit of that. There's a little truth in what I say. But certainly, guidance counselors tend generally not to know this. We have now had a generation or two whose focus is on sit-down jobs with a machine and a screen in front of them. That's missing out on huge opportunities for many young people who would make great tradespeople. Now, I've designed and built a lot of buildings in my life, and I've had thousands of people work for me over the years in building. And I can tell you, these are highly respected, highly sought-after people. I mean, a good carpenter, a good plumber, a good electrician, a good concrete man, for example. We're using those things so people understand. Those are very good professions. People make very good livings out of them, and they often have very successful lives. And, though we don't want to think about it, like the computer, you can go most anywhere with your trade. And I think it's important not to make prisoners out of anybody.
Well, I'll tell you that our young people, when they get a cell phone in their hand, they could do amazing things with those cell phones that we can't do as adults. And the best way to be able to capitalize on that is in our housing communities. VINGN has established computer labs in some of our neighborhoods and our communities. However, those fall short of being able to give us the access that we want. They're not functioning to the level that we want them to function to. They're being closed at 5 o'clock in the afternoon. They're being closed at the weekends. Those are the infrastructure that we have to make available to our young people if we truly want them to start to prepare for that technology and the job skill that's required.
Well, I'm going to tell you what I see as the answer to that, and it's up to between the legislature and whoever to deal with this. You really, the concept of a librarian where a library is open from 8 to 5 defeats the purpose.
Yes.
And we're doing the same thing now with the computer labs in essence. We have to change our thinking. We got to think different, not outside the box like there never was a box.
Yeah.
And the fact of the matter is we got to figure out how we're going to get somebody who's going to be dedicated to keeping those things open, number one. Just curious, are you on the education committee?
I'm not, but I've made it my business to attend almost every single one of the committee meetings that they have. Well, because understanding my role, that I was only allowed to be on 5 committees.
No, yeah, that's right.
But education have been one of those committees that I've attended each and every,
yes.
almost each and every meeting that they have had. I've done all the walkthrough because I understand the importance of education.
All right, no, you're right on time. But the reason why I asked you that is because I wanted to, if you were there, then you'd have a very unique opportunity. But even so, I'm going to throw out an idea to you that education might be able to pursue. We've got VINGN. We've got bandwidth out the yang so that we can do great things. So tell me now, why isn't the Spanish class in St. Thomas and St. Croix being coordinated like the advertisement, so that all of a sudden we can learn Spanish as one class, not eliminating teachers or anything, as a collaborative thing? St. Thomians and Crucians get to know each other. They also learn the lesson, and they do something that's unique and innovative. Now, I use Spanish because that was in the ad when they were talking about it. But it could be done for other classes. I want to see it happen because it just makes sense. It's like we got a jet, a high-speed rail train or whatever, and we making it go at 2 miles an hour. We need to set free this VINGN opportunity that we have as far as education. Anything that you can do in that context, I throw that out to you.
Well, I'll certainly ask a question. There's a committee meeting tomorrow for education and workforce development on St. Thomas, and I'll be there at that meeting. I'll certainly pose the question to the individuals from the Department of Education that will be present.
It's just a scheduling thing?
Of course, and we have to hold education, and if they're already advertising that these are the issues, then education and VINGN should be working collaboratively, like hand in glove, in order to make sure that this is functioning and working well.
Yeah, even to set up one class that does it as proof of the process.
Yes.
Because when you and I put out our cell phone and we do FaceTime or in the case of any of the other teleconference apps, we have much less bandwidth than what the Department of Education have. They can have thousands of people doing what we can do on our one phone, but they could do it through one big pipe, because they one big pipe can handle all of that traffic. And we need to do this as a way of distinguishing ourselves in the world.
Well, the Committee of Economic Development and Agriculture recently asked the VINGN to come and give us a status report on what they're doing with some of the projects that they're working on. They declined our offer at that time. And even if we have to subpoena them, we intend to get to the bottom of what they're doing, how are they benefiting this community, and what are some of their plans. How are they working with other agencies, governmental and non-governmental, in order to make broadband and the functionality of the internet and networking and fiber optic training or whatever is going on. We want to know firsthand, and again, we're the source that provide that information to the community, so we want to be able to query them and with some of the work that they're doing.
Well, I have a feeling you wouldn't have to subpoena them on this one. I'll just throw it out to them and the Department of Education, just say, how can we make this happen? And if there are any problems, let's get the problems together and figure it out and move forward. Yeah, but it's definitely, because it's like having this great resource and underutilizing it. The idea that our libraries are closed at 5 o'clock, that's something that we have to figure out, maybe through technology. How do we change that? How do we start putting more of our libraries online or whatever? Anyhow, I don't want to delve too deeply
well, the greatest
into that right now.
The greatest resource that is wasted is young people.
In the process.
So let's talk about the real resource now. Senator, what do you think we didn't do well on this last measurement, this last testing of the schools? What do you think is the problem?
Well, some of it, and I spent some time this morning with Dr. Copeman, and looking at some of our reading structure and some of the things that's occurring in our school. And I truly believe, well, first of all, according to the Department of Education, it was a new assessment, a new test that was done. They expected that we weren't going to do well in it, but we have a broader issue here. And if you look at the kids count evaluation and what's being done, we're not doing a very good job in ensuring that our literacy level is at the level that it needs to be. So we continue to fail in that particular area, and we're seeing that throughout our community in terms of the action that we're seeing here, because reading is fundamental, education is fundamental, and when we do have that illiteracy in our community, that is contributing to crime that we're experiencing. So it's important that we really take a hands-on and look at some of the issues that's plaguing these assessments, and being able to have the end result being that our students are being better educated and they're reading at the adequate level, and we have to start from the elementary school level. All right, we have too much of a fallout when we look at the literacy rate at the elementary school level is problematic, it's troublesome, and it's something that we have to really get a good handle on. I've heard from the Department of Education and the work that they're doing to address that. I'm not satisfied that enough is being done on it, because we need to see results, and we're not seeing that result.
And certainly it's at the school teacher level, wouldn't you say?
Absolutely. That's where it goes back to, and the teachers have some justifiable reasons why perhaps they're not able to impart this instructions and some of the instruction concerns that they may have in the delivery to the students, but we have to start at the teachers level.
Well, do you know there are 700 teachers, more or less? If we paid each of the teachers $50,000, that'd be $35 million. The budget is $167 million. Where's the other $132 million?
Yeah, well,
that's a good question. You got the answer? We're going to dig for it, but just in case, you are going to save us all the heavy lifting, right? All right, we got a caller here. Caller, good afternoon.
Good afternoon, gentlemen, and good to hear Senator Francis in the house.
All right.
But it always comes back to the teachers. Yet still, the teachers are the one going above and beyond. Don't have the adequate resources to disseminate the necessary curriculum that's in place, and yet still it points always back to the teacher when we know that the resources are dwindling every day. And now you'll see where teachers can be greatly helped. Now the $1.5 million is being given to you, Senator Francis, and your colleagues to distribute to non-profit charities. Senator Francis, I had a talk with you, and I don't know if I said good afternoon or good afternoon, but I had a talk with you the other day about the $1.5 million that I feel can go very much, to more needy causes. And for instance, our schools, it's hard for our children to perform in dilapidated conditions. The environment is not conducive to their betterment or to their health. The wellness of the environment is something that you and the department need to take into consideration, because the mold that's spreading through the entire campuses on St. Croix, to me, it affects our children's ability to perform. They can't sit for too long. They can't think critically because they're here fighting everything else, Senator Francis. The environment, it's bad. The schools have not been cleaned for quite a while, and, we find that not only our students, but our teachers, me personally, I've been affected and because I've been exposed to mold for over 20 years, and now I have to live with this for the rest of my life, Senator Francis. The mold is in my system, and it's really starting to, I believe, work on our children. For the last 8 years, there have been no maintenance done at Janet Woodson Junior High School. For the last 8 years, little bandages have been put on top of big soaring wounds. And that's at one school. And I've been there for 23 years. So anybody can talk all they want to talk. I've been there. I've given them recommendations how they can mitigate certain things, and they have ignored it, Senator Francis. So I'm asking you, please, just like you agreed with me, that the money, the 1.5, can go to a third party. I'm asking you, please. I don't want to start thinking of you as one of my senators who, inappropriately set yourself up. I really don't want that, Senator Francis.
Well, there's no way that you could point the finger to me in terms of the benefits of these nonprofit organizations coming directly back to me. I think clearly what we are seeing and our discussion is that perhaps in retrospect, based on the advice that we had gotten from our legal counsel, there's other ways that perhaps we could review and make a determination of how the money will be channeled through these nonprofit organization. But it's critical that the money gets to the nonprofit organization. We're talking about the after school programs. We're talking about the basketball and youth club that's going on in our community. We're talking about a cancer society and various rehabilitation programs, police athletic league, kickscope. The beneficiaries of these funding is critical that we get it to them, because they're all part of this community, and because they weren't funded in the miscellaneous as they have traditionally been done, they found that they may have to close the door, which will transcend into more problematic, because we will have situation where our students will be unoccupied, be less busy, and will be discouraged to the point where they start to become a problem in this community. So,
and I know Senator's not cutting up, but I know Senator one hand can't clap.
Yes.
And yes, they need those support. Yes, they need that. But put it through the miscellaneous budget to ensure that these money goes to these organizations. For you to be giving it out, Senator Francis, to me, it reeks of corruption, because here it is, you are giving these organizations the money, and all we know, you could be asking for their support or their vote. And I don't want that impression upon you, Senator Francis.
Very well.
I respect you a lot. I don't want nobody to think that way about you.
And like I say, we will have to decide exactly how we will retool this so that the beneficiaries receive the money, which means that if we have to put it through the miscellaneous section, which initially was done, however, on advice of legal counsel, it was recommended that in order to make sure that the money reach to the desired beneficiary, that in fact that there will be an establishment of a fund for that purpose. We will revisit that. The Senate President have already indicated that they will revisit that. And however, at the end of the day, we want to make sure that these nonprofit get the money, and it does not create a stain on the legislature, because that's not what we intended it to do, but rather for a benefit to our youth organizations. And we're hoping at the end of the day.
Okay, I'm going to go on this here. Senator Francis, I'm going to go on this here. Senator James and the legislature are refusing to divulge the information that's been requested to the Freedom of Information. The information as it pertains to the salaries and the names. You're refusing, your institution, the Senate is refusing to release that information. How do we know, or how should we trust that you're going to release information about who gets the $100,000? Who gets money from the hunt? You see, this is what the community is is clamoring over.
Yeah, but that's the newspaper's perception.
To be law, and yet say we're supposed to trust that we're going to be informed as to where the 100. So I'm asking this, please, I don't want that for you, my senator. Take care, guys. Thank you, Doug.
All right, good. All right.
Thank you for your call. And again, the Senate President is now refusing to disseminate the information. The means by which the Daily News wants the information and at what time they want the information is what is being discussed. Yeah, certainly the information is accessible. It should be put out to the public as public funds that's being used to pay employees. And I've indicated already that I believe that my salary and the salary of my employees are free access. How it's done and how it's disseminated, then the Senate President and the legislature will make that determination, and the information will be released.
Senator, you've been to the Community Block Development Grant hearing, so you well aware of how many nonprofits in our community put forward proposals and come forward seeking assistance, and then the very few that ultimately
receives it
because of the limitations of the fund.
Of course,
yeah.
Yes.
Okay, so we know that we have more organizations out there trying to do good things in our community than there's been money to go around.
Absolutely.
So if I understand correctly, and this is my understanding from the beginning, basically what you're trying to do is create a vehicle by which you could address more of those organizations to be able to receive
the money, and the money would not be going directly to those nonprofit either. It'll go towards the organization that oversees them, part of the administration agency. If it's a sports club, it'll go towards the housing parks. Sports park and recreation. If it's under human services, the sort of money will be released by the executive branch to the governmental agency, then they'll award it to that nonprofit. Right. However, there's criteria that nonprofit will have to meet in order to, again, receive that money as well as to show for the expenditure of that funds.
In other words, there's going to be oversight.
Absolutely.
And the legislature does not conduct that oversight.
No.
Ultimately, the decision as to who it goes.
By the bill currently in place, it's still the executive branch that will be issuing the funding, as well as the agencies within the government that will be the oversight responsibility rests solely with them.
All right, and I'm asking those questions because I really want the information to be clear to the public what it is that is happening, and I think that to the extent that maybe the legislature did not convey to the public as clear as possible that they could get to feeling this way, somehow or the other we got to fix that, because you called some very, very important names in terms of organization.
Yes.
When you start talking about Police Athletic League, PAL, when you start talking about Boys and Girls Club, when you start talking about American Cancer Society, last I know, no senator owned those organizations.
Exactly, and some of the teams and basketball teams and those people that's those students that benefits from this, they have to go and sell water a lot of times. They go and they're prepared. They get their hopes up to travel to certain events and at the last minute they're told that we were unable to issue the funding to you, so you have to pack up. They have had students that have been at the airport waiting to board a plane while awaiting Department of Education or Sports Park and Recreation or whatever to give them the authorization to travel. Yeah. What do you think that do to morale of those students?
Yeah, it's crazy.
So it's unfortunate. It's unfortunate that this has taken a real ugly turn to it, and perhaps in retrospect is the way it was rolled out at the time. But the important issue is that from day one, we have been approached by all these non-profit organizations, and they don't care who you are. They're not coming to Novelle Francis or coming to Kurt VLA because they want to come to them. They will use any opportunity, any access to who, if they have to speak to all 15 senators, that's what they'll do, because at the end of the day, they're trying to ensure that the beneficiary are all students in this community.
Well, I was recently involved with a nonprofit organization that was seeking some assistance with a program that they were doing. And it was very interesting to me, the documentation that they had to fill out, going through the governor's office / the various departments they have to fill out some very interesting information as far as accountability, what the funds are, where they're going, so forth and so on. And I can say from my experience, they didn't have to do that before. So I see that we're moving much more toward accountability.
Of course, an audit. We had a damning audit that ensured that we move towards that type of accountability.
Yes, and it means also that it's a better chance that the monies get where they need to go.
Yes.
And this is where we need to be focused. I don't fault the public in any way in terms of its concern,
Of course.
because they perceive something, but more and more now we see the perception isn't the reality.
Yes.
And so now we need to refocus and move on to the next progressive thing that's going to get something positive done in the community. Well, to that extent, having sat through these CDBG hearings and seeing how little money there is, relatively speaking, for these nonprofits that have been holding down the fort in our community, we have to do what we can to make sure we keep their doors open. Could you imagine the Virgin Islands without a Boys and Girls Club?
Yes.
Could you imagine us without Little League? Could you imagine us without some of these art programs that we have for our young people?
The music programs, the sports programs that's throughout our community. And again, a lot of the leaders are actually taking money out of their own pockets a lot of times, or they tap into other source to get the funding. As a business person, tens of thousands of dollars goes into donation to this community. So there is an opportunity here for the government to do their part, and we'll revisit that issue. Before we run out of time, I just wanted to. Okay. I kind of wanted to just speak a little bit in terms of an assessment that was done of the Virgin Islands Police Department recently by T&M Protective Agency, and in that assessment, they made some certain determination of the status of the police department and offered several solutions to address some of the problems that we're seeing here within our police department in terms of management, training, accountability, and those type of issues. There'll be a hearing on Thursday where TNM, as well as the Virgin Islands Police Department Police Commissioner Delroy Richards and the Deputy Commissioner Curtis Griffith, will get an opportunity to testify before the Committee of Homeland Security, Justice and Public Safety, where they'll be able to again present this assessment to the public. It's unusual for an assessment to be done in that fashion, but nonetheless, at the nudging of the governor, he wanted to ensure that the community is aware of the assessment and some of the solutions as we move towards improving the Virgin Islands Police Department and other law enforcement agency. So, they'll come before the committee where they'll present their assessment, as well as be queried from the committee members as well as other senators, so that the public could get an opportunity to truly see and hear, where our police department is at currently and how they intend to retool and improve their workability.
Well, when I hear that, what I hear is that instead of this being this wall of silence, that truly they're looking at through the legislative medium, making the public more of a partner, because law enforcement needs the public to be a partner for them to be effective. And as a two-way street, I think that this is very helpful in terms of making sure people are clear that it is a two-way street and that they should put away whatever reservations they have and make sure they support their police.
It's all part of the image building. If you're going to improve your police department, then you have to improve the image of the police department so that the community could feel comfortable in providing you with the information that would lead to the timely arrest of those perpetrators, or the prevention aspect that's required to start to really retool and prevent. Crime is a behavioral issue. If you're having that behavioral issue, when you call the police, it's already late. There's a lot of preventative that have to go into it, and certainly that's the angle by which we want this assessment to come out. The community be able to see some of the problematic areas and some of the difficulties in being able to enforce certain laws, but in fact that there are solutions to the problem, and the police department will be working towards those solutions, which means that some of the actions that you have seen in the past where have been a little bit tolerable, you'll see that the police department may be taking a different stance on those issues and starting to address the broken window theory and those smaller things, addressing the smaller things where the bigger things will fall into place. Some of the training, and you'll hear a lot of times that there's a consent decree and then there's training that needs to be done, and there's a conflict because the same individual that needs to be in compliance to the consent decree is the same ones that you have to take offline to send to training. It's really a song and dance issue, and truly you'll hear from the assessment, what was done, and this was being done by some individuals between that came from the New York Police Department, and have been since retired and been involved in really going around the country and doing assessments of police department and reporting some of the solutions to address the problem. And the governor recently announced too that there will be a partnership with other, the New York Police Department and John Jay College, where officers will be going off to training so that you can start to diversify your police force, because we could think that we're doing a good job here in the Four Corners, but when you get that exposure, you see how things are done differently, and how matters are investigated in a timely fashion. And at the end of the day, you want to have your community respect the police department at the level that they feel confident in providing them with the information and that we resolve into the solvability of crime.
Well, we can't afford to do any less. And I'm glad to see that we're rising to the occasion and getting above, that's too expensive. What's the cost of not doing it?
Yes. Yeah.
Especially when it comes to training. And I'm saying from my observation in government, whenever it's training and it's for the higher-ups, I always get a quick approval.
Yeah.
Whenever it's for the man on the ground who got to do the work, it's like, okay, all of this red tape, and then a year later you still haven't gone. So I'm glad to see this type of an emphasis, because the bottom line is the professionalism in the police department is something that's required. It's not something that's optional. So training like that is, I went down to the police station the other day on my own. They ain't picked me up. I went down there the other day to talk with the IT director down there.
Yes.
Okay, and something maybe you can assist me with. But basically, you saw that for a while there in the national press, we went through the issues with the shootings and certain technologies that came into play, whether it was the body cameras, the dash cams, and so forth and so on. Those things aren't controversial items in and of themselves. They're just tools that help the policemen to go that much further, to be that much more effective, because they have this technology to back them up. And basically what I'm trying to do is to get them on here to talk with the public about the technology that they use and how they're implementing those technologies to help keep Virgin Islanders safe and otherwise protect and serve. Okay, so I'm throwing this one out to you in terms of your ability to assist in getting them down here, because that's not something that we're going to get the police department beat up on as much so as it is help the public to feel more confident.
Yes, when you talk about accountability, and we see that a lot, where you're actually able to go, because the video, video information is something that don't lie. Unless it is altered in some fashion, but certainly having that video, a lot of times that helps to vindicate a police officer's action. It helps to also again capture important moments in terms of your investigation that leads to perhaps conviction or acquittal of an individual. So it's important that we start to move towards that cutting edge of being able
proactive.
to have
Don't wait
body
till
cams
something happen. We're just being
and
proactive.
body cams, and those are technology that the police department should be very secured by having that type of information available to them, because again it protects the police officer and protects the department as well.
Well, the thing here is that I don't think that it's as much that they don't have it. They do have these things, and they are working on these things. What I'm interested in is a dialogue more with the public.
Yes.
So that the public could be aware in the context and have that much more faith and confidence in other words, we're not going to have an incident like what they had up there before we start thinking, we're already on the ball, we're already doing these things. But yes, you know that, because internally you discuss it, but just come out to the public. We have some forums here that will help you to get that information out and shield from the other people who just have whatever negative they want to talk about in that process. But definitely,
that's extremely important. The police department, like other government agencies, have to start to sell themselves. They have to show the positive things that's going on within those agencies, even the legislature, again, we have to start to be able to for ourselves, provide that information that will be at the forefront, so that you don't have individuals then making determination of what your intent may have been. You come out and you're able to subject yourself to interviews, having these discussion openly and publicly, so that the public could really see you in that genuine responsibility, rather than the the news media and others making determination of what your intent may have been.
Right. Well, let's go back to the 1-point-something million dollars and this big hurrah that's going on. And the bottom line is, when you describe what it was supposed to be able to do,
Yes.
and what the goals are and so forth and so on, you'd be surprised how many people in the community have a suggestion how to effect that maybe better. Just because you have legal counsel doesn't mean you have all the ideas. Just because you have 3 assistants and their brains doesn't mean you have all the ideas. The public is part of the partnership in this, and make them jump on the ball and be a part of the solution. That's
Of
all I'm
course.
saying.
And you wouldn't believe the 95% of the individuals that approach me about this situation have some negative, some had some negative connotation, but 95% of the individuals that approach me wanted to know how their nonprofit organization could be funded as well.
And that's a silent majority, That's a
They
silent
don't want,
majority.
they didn't have a problem with it.
Yeah.
They want to know how their nonprofit organization could be funded as well. If the money was already expended, if there's still an opportunity for them to be able to apply for the funding and those type of issues. Because they understood and saw the benefit of having the nonprofit organization funded. Some of the parents for some of the students that's involved in these nonprofit organizations, approach me. So there's always a positive side to this, but the negative, and the individuals, and rightfully so, they help to keep us grounded. They help to keep us level-headed, so that we want to make sure that the information gets out properly.
All right. Well, it has really been a pleasure to have you here today and to have this discussion. And I'm hoping that in the process, what I was talking about with the technology and the police, maybe we can make a little headway in terms of getting them to communicate with the public. It's been very enlightening, and I hope that folks are listening. And whatever questions, that they don't get to the point where they don't ask questions. Ask the question, get the answer. Your senator has been here talking to you. He hasn't flinched. He hasn't run from anything. He's met everything head on and explained it quite well. So it's definitely a pleasure having you here. Anyhow, we're going to take a quick pause for the cause as we're running closer to the final moments, and then we close out.
Listen to Straight Talk with Redfield online at WSTXAM.com. Get ready to call in at 773-0490. Straight Talk with Redfield will be right back on AM 970 WSTX. This is AM 970 WSTX.
All right, we're back on Straight Talk, and we're down to about our last 5 minutes here. But we've had a very fantastic discussion here with Senator Novelle Francis. And before him, we had American Cancer Society in the house. And just want to remind you that this Saturday, down at the Amapawi Ballpark there in Castle Coakley, that they're going to be having their kickoff event with plenty of entertainment in the process. So you can also sign up your team and meet with other folks, and otherwise get together and plan for this next upcoming Relay for Life, May 21st, 22nd. It's a fantastic event. We all have to join in the fight against cancer. So now we're closing out here with Senator Novelle Francis, and I really enjoyed this conversation. I want to say that simply because the criticisms that were there, you met them head on, you debunked them, and I see that there's just a bottleneck in terms of the information getting out to the public. And as I told you, I've been to many a CDBG hearing where you see how many nonprofits are there looking for support. All right? And every senator, from what I understand, had an opportunity based on people who lobbied them or came ideas that came to their mind as to organizations, and some of those that are on Senator Novelle Francis list include the Youth Boxing Club, Interchanges, Soldiers Basketball, Positive Guidance, American Cancer Society, Bureau of Corrections, Rehabilitation Programs, YRC Rehabilitation Programs, Ground Strokes Tennis Club, the Hounds and Foxes Tracks Club, the Virgin Islands Good Food Coalition, the Police Athletic League, Kids Scope. As far as I know, none of those nonprofit organizations, and focus on a word, nonprofit organizations, are owned by Senator Francis. All of them do positive things in our community, and I will bet you most of them are struggling. All right? Be a part of the solution. If you have a better way to get the money to them, please, we're all ears. Join in and be part of the solution. Okay, Senator, I commend you on your efforts in this regard, definitely, because ultimately these organizations is what really do the groundwork that make things happen.
Thank you very much, former Senator Canton. And in closure, I'd just like to say that there were some issues that I raised recently where the real ID system compliance issue was being threatened. Since then, the Secretary of Homeland Security, Jay Johnson, have indicated that there is an extension granted up until 2018 in which states and territories need to be in compliance of the real ID compliance issue. I still want to strongly encourage individuals, if it's cost effective for them to go and get a passport, because there's some challenges still by our driver's license being accepted in some states. So that you don't find yourself at a predicament where you're questioned in terms of your identification being certified until such time that motor vehicles director will leave and those individuals are able to get this real ID compliance issue taken care of. I will suggest that individuals still have a passport, so that you don't find yourself in a predicament while traveling.
Okay.
And I want to thank you for this opportunity again to speak with the people in the community. The governor made, when he had a press conference earlier today, we talked about some pay increases, and I know that that's an issue. And he talked about a wave of 7 that have gone through thus far. I wish that teachers and Bureau of Correction individuals were a part of that wave, but nonetheless, he have already committed that they will continue to do it in a piecemeal approach. But however, all government agencies will be taken care of at some point. So we look forward to that, and I want to strongly encourage our teachers and our other government professionals, not to be discouraged, but in fact, your turn will come around, and the good thing is all being retroactive back to January 1st.
Well, in the past it was always why it can't be done.
Yes.
Okay?
Yeah.
Now we more into why it all can't be done, and some of it is getting done, and we see now actual getting done, and it's great to see that. Now, for those of us who go back far enough to remember the old days of how motor vehicles used to be when you were outside and hot and sweating and waiting. Now,
there's some progress. The progress is being made.
There's change, and it's for the better.
Yes.
And it's even gotten more efficient in the process.
Yeah.
Yes, there's still things that they can do, or in this case of the pay raise, there's still things left to be done.
Yes.
But let's focus on the things that are being done and how we can get more done, and keep the fire under their feet in that regards, because we really want to see things get done, not want to be able to say, this person is a good for nothing, that person is a good for nothing, because this not being done and that not being done. No, let's focus on what is being done and how we could get more done. Okay?
Yes,
anyhow, I want to thank you again.
You're welcome.
It's really been fun, actually. I hope to see more information like this coming out to the public. In fact, to the extent that all the other senators are willing, they could send us their list of who they recommended in terms of to be assisted through this fund. Because I think ultimately we need to keep the public focused on the good there is being done and to be done, than a misunderstanding as to why something didn't get done.
Absolutely.
Okay?
Thank you very much for
again.
the opportunity.
All right. Well, we're here on Straight Talk, the shot heard around the world, and I want to thank Senator Novelle Francis for bringing us up to date from his perspective. And I wish you all the best throughout the day. Think positive, be a part of the solution, and make sure if you've got to say something, check yourself first as to whether or not it is worth saying and going to contribute to the positive movement in our community. Thank you again.
Whose broad stripes and bright stars